Hi, Scissorin here, and we're doing a podcast with 11 Hour Games, and we're joined here by some of the developers, and I'm joined by Rax. We're going to be doing an interview and talking about the upcoming Tombs of the Erased Season 2, and we're going to start off with showing the official trailer so they have a better idea what we're going to be looking at and talking about.
You've come to the right place, traveler. And in this time, you can share in her embrace. Rejoice, traveler. We've prepared a silken tomb for you, woven with golden strands that even you cannot break. Join us, traveler.
There we have it. Awesome. So yeah, we are joined here by the devs, and we have a lot of topics to cover. Very excited. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join us here and answer a lot of questions about the game. I think we'll start with some introductions just so everybody knows who's who. Judd, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, my name is Judd Kobler. I'm the founder of 11th Hour Games, game director for Last Epoch, located over here in Texas. I started 11th Hour Games back in 2017 through Reddit as just a die-hard action RPG player. So I've been on the other side as a player for much longer than over on this side as a developer. Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Awesome. Ross?
Hey, how's this? I'm Ross, creative director at 11th Hour Games. Just a bit about myself. I've worked on the front-end design and implementation of a lot of different systems and features in the game, plus a bunch of stuff outside of the game as well. I wasn't part of the OG Kickstarter crew. I think I started contributing perhaps in patch 0.7. This was a while back before we had things like idols. We were using protections rather than resistances. So a while ago, but not all the way back to Kickstarter days. In terms of how I joined the company, it's definitely a slightly unusual process there. I remember looking at the Last Epoch Kickstarter page when it was live, and my main takeaway from that was that the team seemed really genuine, and I thought the systems design was really solid. I am ashamed to say I didn't actually back the project though. In my defense, this was just before my son was born, so I was saving money for the baby. That's what we'll go with. But yeah, sometime later, I saw one of your streams, Ziz, and I think you were streaming with Mike and Judd. And yeah, that stream convinced me to dive in. The game looked better than it did at the Kickstarter phase. And yeah, when I played, I thought there was a real charm to the game, and I thought I would offer my help to the team. So I just started designing things and sending that across, mostly to Judd initially. I worked on elements that I knew the team could probably implement fairly quickly, things like reworking tooltips, reworking the dialogue system, and things like that. But in addition to that, I saw the team at a roadmap and I just started mocking up systems that were much further out there. I just picked the Eternity Cache because I thought that sounded cool. And I started experimenting with what I thought that would be. In the end, we didn't use my ideas there. Holly came up with something much better later on. But it did help to kickstart some of those conversations. And, I started talking with Judd, and then eventually he convinced me to join the team later on. And here I am.
Took me
Awesome.
about 2 years of courting Ross to get him to come over from his previous position.
Yeah.
He was this guy that he would show up on Discord and hand us gold. He would just be like, "Here's a better design for the thing that you're doing," and we're like, "This is fantastic." And it took me 2 years. About every 3 months, I'd message Ross and be like, "It's time to come over. It's time to come over." And
That's
finally,
awesome.
finally, we got him here. So a lot of the good
man.
quality updates that you guys see coming through is because of Ross. Great to have him.
Yeah, and I guess if I hadn't seen Ziz's stream there, maybe I wouldn't be here. Who knows?
You're welcome. No, that's awesome. Very, very cool.
Thank you, Ziz.
Cheers.
Making
Holly?
things happen.
Yeah, I'm the principal designer. I was there right at the start. I replied to one of those Reddit threads from Judd back in 2017 and got into just a company Discord at the time. So I've been there since then. I'm primarily a designer now, but I was one of the only developers back then, so I implemented a lot of the base versions of the early systems, like the stats system, ability system, AI, things like that. And design Last Epoch is a collaborative effort. There aren't really many things that any of us could point to and say we've designed that as the whole thing. But I have come up with the base ideas and did a lot of the design work on systems like skill trees and item factions.
Awesome. And a lot of people already know Rax, but Rax, do you want to do a quick introduction for yourself?
I'm Rax. I wear a blue hoodie. I play ARPGs like this. That's me.
And I'm the blue counterpart to Rax, so together we are Blue Man Group. For those that don't know me, I also play a lot of ARPGs. So it's been a while since season 1. It's been a large gap. So yeah, do you want to give us a TLDR on that, Judd?
Yeah. The gap between season 1 and season 2 was much longer than we'd like it to be, and much longer than we'll be aiming for going forward. I do hope that when people see the patch notes, they'll immediately know that we weren't just sitting idly. A lot of great content coming out with season 2. The reason that it took so long to get season 2 out is because it was clear what the community was asking for us to work on, and we decided to deviate from our prior season 2 plans to prioritize the addressing of the community feedback coming through. People are asking for more things to do in the in-game, updates to dungeons, more balance, getting those crafting materials out of your inventory, etc. And while these were all things that we were planning to do over time, I think if we had proceeded with our prior season 2 content plans, we might have seen tone deaf if we were to have proceeded with that over addressing some of the wants coming from the community. So we took some additional time to address the biggest wants coming out there. And because of that, I think people are really going to enjoy the content coming out with season 2.
Awesome. And you mentioned seasons were going to be coming faster going forward. Like, what kind of time frame are we going to be looking at for future updates?
Yeah, that's definitely the plan. We're still aiming for that 3 to 4 month releases for these seasons. And we did take some time this development cycle to work on things that'll better set us up for success in that regard. We've done things like we've upgraded the engine so that doesn't become a roadblock going forward. That also gives us some great performance wins alongside a lot of efficiencies internally for the working team. We have some of the team already working on future content, which is quite new for 11th Hour Games, as we've always been racing to get that next piece of content out the door, and we haven't found ourselves in the position to be working on content for further in the future than the upcoming immediate next patch. So that's very cool to see that we're now at that point. And then we've also been working on systems that'll help us produce content more quickly, like our new procedural content generation engine, which is what powers the new Tombs of the Erased content, all of the procedural side zones that you'll encounter. And then I should probably say for any viewers that don't know what procedural content generation is, it's basically a way for us to declare a set of rules and inputs to create content. And then we put that into the engine, and then the engine will spit out a random zone layout with encounters and events and things of that nature, which will be a huge, huge boon for us, as previously we were having to create all of these zones manually. And of course, one of the biggest challenges with creating an action RPG and seasonal content is just being able to deliver PvE content at high quality as fast as people can consume it. So that's going to be a huge boon for us.
And are you aiming for like every 3 months, every 4 months? Any idea on something like that?
I think our ultimate goal is to get it down to 3 months. I think it's more reasonable to say 4 months is more what 11th Hour Games is capable at the moment. But again, we are continuing to create things that will just help us make sure that we can develop content more quickly. We're certainly not at the point where we want to rush things out the door and have things be buggy and broken and things like that. So, with the team size that we have right now and the tools at our disposal, aim for 3 months. If we land at like the 4 months or so time frame, that's generally what we're happy with.
Awesome. And then we have season 2 starts on 2nd of April. Is that right?
April 2nd.
I'm very excited.
All right, so yeah, on that 3 or 4 month thing, every time someone promises us 3 months, it ends up being 4 months anyway, it seems. So we probably won't hold you to that.
Producing
anyway.
PvE content, I mean, if you think of the entire development cycle of a piece of action RPG seasonal content, if you think of everything that has to go through, be bug tested, be iterated on, get feedback on, scale test, bug fix, all of that stuff, it's a really challenging timeline to get that amount of content across the board that quickly. But we understand that it's important because people, of course, don't want to be sitting there with the same content for a long number of months without something new to do.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that you said you spent way more of your time as a player rather than a developer. It'd be a cool different podcast if we could pick your brain on what is actually like the differences there, because you like rattle off those 300 things you have to do. Yeah.
Being on the other side is very, very interesting. One of the main reasons I developed or created 11th Hour Games is because I had been a part of other ARPG communities in the past, and like Ross, we would go with groups of people and we would say, hey, the game would be so much better if you would implement this thing, and we would provide mock-ups, and we were just dying to get any responses from the developers, and we would be handing over things that community collaborated, community agreed on would make the game much better, but it would be radio silence. And I really wanted to make a studio, an action RPG that I knew that I could build a team that would constantly listen to community feedback, because nobody knows these games better than the players that are playing these games for hundreds and thousands of hours. Us as developers, we don't have time to play Last Epoch for 1,000 hours in a quarter. We just don't have the time because we're sitting there developing it. So it's in studio's best interest to intimately be listening to all of the player feedback coming through, because generally they know better what needs to be done. Maybe not how to approach it all the time, but better what needs to be done for the game to be great.
That's pretty true.
Very well said. Okay. Well, why don't we get into it here? All the cool new stuff. Why don't we talk about the Tombs of the Erased that you just brought up, which I think are the new side dungeons? I guess just best way to phrase this. Can you just give us an overall view of the system and how it's going to work for us?
Yeah, I'll do that for you, Rex. No problem. In terms of Tombs of the Erased, with season 2, we're introducing these new side zones. These are the tombs and cemeteries of the Erased that you might have seen in the trailer. These zones, as Judd mentioned, use our new procedural generation system, so each layout there is unique. That's something we've not been able to do before, and we're really keen to deploy elsewhere in future as well. These zones are the main entry point to interact with all of the new endgame systems and content that's coming for season 2. So we have a new endgame faction to progress through, the Woven, and a Weaver tree that allows you to influence the monolith, both in terms of its rewards and its encounters. The theming for this season is based on the Weaver, which we've only alluded to previously through things like the Weaver's lore text. She's a big old spider titan who's trying to shape the world world into her own version, and she's busy gathering and experimenting with souls from raised timelines as a source of memories to shape this new world. So the new woven echoes that you'll be exploring are based on these weird experiments by the Weaver, and we'll talk more about these shortly. So to summarize all of that, the start of the journey through the new endgame content really begins when you start exploring these tombs and cemetery side zones.
And did you say that there's a tree connected to it, so we get an endgame tree? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, the Weaver tree. You'll be familiar with systems like this where
Yeah.
you can, you can adjust the monolith and modify certain aspects of it.
So these
God,
are
I love
in
endgame stuff.
these are in monoliths. Will they be like separate like islands or blocks that appear, or will they be inside existing monoliths? And like, how often are we going to see them?
So both tombs and cemeteries are in the monolith specifically. Tombs spawn inside echoes, roughly about 50% of the time, although there are some ways to influence that. Cemeteries are rarer, and they spawn as a passive echo type, where completing the cemetery is the objective for that particular echo.
Okay.
So how do you complete them? And like, so is it like a full clear? Is there a boss? Do you have to do objectives? Do I have to pull levers? How long do these things take?
When you go, Holly.
Yeah, there's a boss. They're a bit smaller than a regular echo, but the layout's quite different using procedural generation. But it's just a case of getting to the boss. You don't have any levers to press or secondary objectives. Definitely don't have to full clear them.
Yeah,
Awesome.
in terms of length, they're fairly short. Tombs are slightly smaller than the cemeteries, and you can complete them, in about a minute or so. It really depends on how fast you kill the boss. If you're lower DPS, it'll take a bit longer. There are some specific woven echoes later on that utilize larger versions of tombs, but we'll get to that.
Well, okay. So how balanced is it that like a lot of min-maxers especially will like end up skipping things? Like what's the rewards going to be like?
Yeah, so we do think that exploring this content is going to be rewarding enough or enticing for most players. I think in terms of players that are just skipping content, you're trying to get to empowered monoliths as fast as possible before interacting with anything. It's always going to be tough to make additions to the end game that those players are happy to pause and delay for. But in terms of the specific rewards, both zones have the chance to spawn treasure rooms with chests and caches, and as mentioned, the bosses, the unique bosses for each, they drop their own unique items as well. You'll also start finding woven echoes as items when you progress through these. And both of these zones are the main location where you pick up memory amber. This is the currency that you gain and spend in various ways to progress through the ranks of the woven faction. In terms of memory amber, both zones have cocoons in them that when you destroy them, that releases a soul, and then that soul seeks a nearby enemy and empowers it. Those enemies gain a modifier, they gain more health and damage, and then they drop more memory amber on top of that. And yeah, the memory amber ties closely in with all of the various reward systems in Tombs and in the faction as a whole. And I guess I'll pass it over to Holly, who'll talk about some systems that we haven't introduced so far. The idle enchantment system.
Okay.
Yes. So when you get to the end of a tomb or cemetery, you'll be able to enchant an idol, specifically a class-specific idol, so one of the ones that takes up 3 or 4 slots in the idol inventory, and that adds a random affix to it from a new pool. And also gives it an amount of Weaver's Touch. Weaver's Touch is like Weaver's Will, but for idols instead of uniques. And it'll upgrade that extra affix it's added and also have a chance to add a new one. So you'll be able to get up to 4 affixes on your class-specific idols now. And the 3rd and 4th affix are from a new pool of affixes. So they're ones that haven't appeared on idols before. And like regular affixes, but unlike other idle affixes, these have 7 tiers, so you can they can upgrade with the Weaver's Touch system.
Wow.
So
That's going to be kind of OP.
That one wasn't in the trailer.
that sounds incredible because before all the time we were just running around just picking up these idols, and now we're going to actually be like enchanting them. It's almost like when I talked to Zizra on the previous podcast about PoE about how much he likes the lab. It's like using like the divine font at the lab to like upgrade your gems, but this time we're doing it with idols. And then did you say you add like Weaver's Will on it, so then you go play and the idols power up even further after that? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Also,
So it's just like Weaver's Will in that aspect.
okay.
But with Weaver's Will, it's permanent. Once the item has that, it's locked. Whereas with idols, you can take them back to a tomb or cemetery and effectively respec them as if you're enchanting them from scratch. But that costs memory amber.
So I can keep re-rolling the same one. So if I found like a best in slot idol, I can like keep rolling it until it's perfect.
Yes, it's just time.
Awesome.
Because we wanted to have this extra aspect and extra affixes on idols, but we didn't want to drastically increase the amount of RNG required to get a perfect idol, which it would be if you had to randomize 4 affixes instead of 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the tombs, cemeteries, and the bigger versions of tombs, they all have a different amount of times that you can enchant the idols as well. The tombs that you encounter most frequently, you just get one. You get one. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Initially, it sounds like an amazing system. So you spoke about woven echoes. What exactly are those, and how are those different from the regular echoes that we've experienced before?
So woven echoes are basically the closest comparison is unique maps in Path of Exile. They are bits of the Weaver's new world, crafted out of the memories of the souls of the erased, and they drop as items, normally in tombs and cemeteries, but you can get them elsewhere as well from possessed enemies. And at the end of a cemetery of the erased is an altar to the Weaver, and you can you can go there and slot your woven echoes into the timeline, and then you can run them like regular echoes, and some of them will have effects on other echoes around them, and they'll have new content like new bosses or new types of encounter.
Awesome.
Am I missing
Can I-
anything, Chat of Us?
Yeah. Can I trade this with other players?
Not currently. So with the way the bazaar is set up, it's very much intended for items that aren't identical to each other. Like close comparison is runes. So if you have 2 runes of discovery, those are identical. And so if we had loads of listings on the bazaar of different runes of discovery, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Whereas if you've got loads of different, even versions of a unique, those are going to have different roles, different amounts of LP. So it does make sense for them to show up here. Woven echoes don't have roles on them. We did consider it, but in the end we decided to make them easy to organize in the inventory, and that meant that each copy would have to be identical.
Can you gift them to friends if they're like you're playing together and stuff like that?
No, it's just like crafting materials, but you can
Okay.
run them with your friends like other echoes.
Okay. And are multiple people able to use like the reward, or is that just like one person?
Yes, it normally drops for everyone.
Oh, okay. Very cool. And you were speaking about the new faction, the Woven. Is that something you choose, so it's at odds with the other mechanics, or is it like Forgotten Knights where you fight Aberroth and it's separate?
It's like Forgotten Knights. So the way we split it up is we've got item factions and endgame factions. Item factions are Merchant's Guild and Circle of Fortune. You pick one of the 2 and you don't get access to the other. Whereas endgame factions, you just get all of them.
Okay. And how do you progress it?
You collect Memory Amber, which drops from enemies in tombs, it drops from possessed enemies, and you also progress by spending Memory Amber. It's like Favor in that respect.
Awesome.
Okay, so yeah, everyone's going to be progressing the woven. It's not going to be like something
Yes,
exclusive,
yes.
and you'll be playing SSF or trade. Okay.
It's pretty core to customizing endgame, so we want everyone to have access to it.
Awesome.
Makes perfect sense. I saw in the trailer you said champion enemies and new affixes. Can you tell us more about what those are or what we'll be experiencing?
Yes, so champion enemies are basically they're like mini bosses and rare enemies crossed together. So they're more powerful enemies that are based on existing enemy types, but they have new abilities and they have an extra random modifier, which adds a random ability to them. And then they always drop an item with a champion affix. That goes in the sealed slot, but there are quite powerful effects there, like +1 maximum companion, or piercing additional enemies with multi-shot, things like that. And because they're sealed, that means that you can never get these on legendary items, which allows us to put a little bit more power budget into them.
Ah, okay, cool. Can you get exalted stats on these as well?
Yes, but because
Okay.
they're sealed, you can't change them afterwards, so you have to get them to drop exalted.
Okay.
So,
And
sorry, go ahead.
even if they're exalted, I cannot merge this with a legendary potential no matter what, right?
Yes, because they're sealed, and the
Cool.
sealed affix is never taken into account for making legendaries.
Very cool. Sorry, Rex, go ahead.
No, yeah. From a design aspect, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, these champion affixes that are going to be on these items are just super powerful. Is this something where you envision, like design wise, how many of our item slots do you think people are going to want, like with these champion affixes? Like, is it going to be like a 1 or 2 kind of thing, or are people going to be farming to try to get full champion affixes on all pieces of gear for all builds?
So they're quite build specific. So firstly, some of them are more generic, but generally there are only going to be a few that are applicable to your build, and each affix only drops for 1 slot. So even if you want those champion affixes for your build, it's not going to take over all your itemization. It's just
Cool.
going to be those slots you're farming.
Very cool.
Seems good.
And there's new bosses and Uber Aberroth as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? And with Uber Aberroth in particular, there's going to be 2 difficulties now, right? There's going to be normal Aberroth and Uber Aberroth. What's the difficulty levels on the 2 Aberroth fights, basically?
So Uber Aberroth is quite a lot harder. We have made some changes to base Aberroth, so it's not quite as difficult as it was back in 1.1 or the event
Okay.
patch. But Uber Aberroth is definitely a level above that. Some of it's just numbers changes, but there are mechanical changes as well. Like extra things will show up in the fight. I don't want to spoil all of it, but it's definitely harder.
Cool. And what about the other bosses? Like, are they Uber Aberroth level or?
So most woven echoes, because you're putting them into your timeline like regular echoes, they do scale with corruption. They do scale with your other monolith mods. So the difficulty of those will be variable. If you put them in at low corruption, almost certainly be easier than Aberroth, but you can put them in at any corruption, and because that scales infinitely, they can potentially be harder.
Awesome. Cool. I guess we'll move on and talk about should we do crafting? Well, actually, are there any special unique rewards from Uber Aberroth that are different than a normal one?
Yes, so all the new endgame bosses we're adding through Woven Echoes do have new unique drops. Uber Aberroth has 2 that only drop from him, and you have to kill Uber Aberroth to get those. Unless you're MG, in which case you can buy them, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
So
Definitely.
You don't have the same sense of accomplishment attached to the
Right.
item.
does Uber Aberroth still drop some items from the normal pool as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's regular Aberroth loot and then more on top of that.
Okay.
Are
Let's do some more
are
crafting
some of
then.
these unique real quick, on the Uber Aberroth drops, you said he had 2 unique drops. Are these going to be like godly things? Are these going to be like mage blood or headhunter things where we've got to have these? These going to be like pinnacle items?
They're definitely chase uniques. They're not quite headhunter level in terms of how they modify the way you play the game, but they're definitely very powerful and things that you will want to chase and get for your characters.
Can they drop with legendary potential?
Yes.
Awesome.
God, that's going to be fun. Okay, let's move on to crafting, as Ziz said, and something that, if I may speak from the community, I've heard it a million times, is something you guys do very well.
Mhm.
So, endgame set crafting. So, you shatter set items to get set shards. I saw from the video, but how exactly? What do we do with these shards? How does this help us?
This one's still me. Yes. Okay. These they mostly work like regular shards. You craft them onto your items, and then they get set affixes. So set affixes have a couple of the stats from the original set item, not all of them because that would explain the tooltip. But they also count as the item from that set. So if you have a Velaria Storm Crown and you shatter that and you get the Velaria Storm Crown shards, you then put that onto a helmet. The helmet becomes Velaria Storm Crown Reforged. It has this extra set affix and it counts as Velaria Storm Crown for the purpose of getting the set bonus. So you can equip it with staff or with an exalted staff that has the equivalent affix there.
So that's basically
So-
competing with legendary potential then.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. We're expecting the and importantly, you can't craft these set affixes onto legendaries. So
Yeah.
it's an alternate thing. You can't just smush everything together in one item because we want there to be item diversity for endgame builds.
Very cool.
And shout out to Holly on that because that was one that we actually weren't sure that we were going to be able to get through for season 2, and Holly really wanted it, so she put in some additional hours over the weekend to get that system through. So thank you, Holly, for that one.
I wasn't the only person who worked on that. Like Justin and I did quite a lot as well.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
this actually opens up this is like a whole new like paradigm with set items, right? Because when I think of a set item, I think of like Diablo 2 or World of Warcraft, where okay, I just pick up the 8 pieces, I put them on, and I'm wearing the set. But now you're saying you can shatter it for the set affixes, apply it to other items with different stats, and now it becomes counting toward the set items. So now it's like another layer of the itemization where you're trying to somehow figure out if there's a really powerful set bonus for your build and how you could craft it into your items if the set item itself is not powerful, right?
Correct.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
go ahead, sorry. I thought you finished. The issue we had with set items for a long time, and the reason we couldn't just buff them to fix them, because a big part of the problem was that they were too weak. But the underlying problem was that they were dead-end items. They're items where once you get it, you have that item, you can get better rolls, but essentially that slot's done now for your build. And that's very dangerous for the item system, especially because these are taking up multiple slots for each set. And compare this to unique items where you can get legendary potential. So even once you've got it, it's not a dead end. There's still itemization to go. So with set items, we wanted a way to get those set bonuses and the core of these set items and allow players to use them in a way that doesn't make that slot a dead end.
I mean, that's actually a pretty brilliant solution because that's been like the age-old discussion about set items where okay, you find it and you have it and the progression is done. But also it also solves the problem of okay, if you want to put set items in the game, well, how exactly would you balance it? If you make them godly, then they're just best in slot items. And if you make them suck, then
They're never
sets
used.
are a meme. But now that you shatter them and now that you can craft them into other items, it almost like solves that. I don't know, man. I'm very impressed with that solution. I never thought of that. I never thought of that ever. Not that I'm a smart person. I'm kind of dumb, but I don't know if I would have got there. That seems pretty smart to me, actually. That's
That's
good.
very cool.
That's good.
Mechanically, set items are very interesting. They're cool to chase. They like unique in terms of character, and we really wanted to be able to have set items in the game. But for years and years, we were just very timid to add additional ones because, again, the problem that we're calling out here, where they're either best in slot or you just don't want them whatsoever. So yeah, this is exciting for us, and then hopefully we'll be able to start developing more set items because the system now exists.
And yeah, I don't know if we mentioned, but these types of crafting rewards are they're at the end of specific woven echoes. So you can complete a woven echo, specific woven echo, and you get the ability to shatter set items there.
Yeah, and there's woven offerings as well, where you take 2 items, you sacrifice one, and you buff the other one. Do you improve it more than it currently is, or is this similar to like a divine feature in Path of Exile 1? Like, how does it work?
So divine, you're re-rolling it, and because we wanted this sort of feature for a while with re-rolling unique affixes, but we wanted to do it in a way that doesn't drastically reduce the rarity of having a perfect unique, because we've got the LP as well. And unlike exalted items, uniques don't have an forging potential amount. We couldn't really consume legendary potential for this because the extra affix is almost always going to be better than re-rolling it. So the way the system works is you're sacrificing another copy of the unique with equivalent legendary potential or equivalent Weaver's Will plus affixes if it's a Weaver unique. So that means that you're using 2 for 1 rerolled one, and it means that we can still control the rarity of that through the normal drop rates.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
Yeah. So can we move on to a little bit about the new items and like chase uniques and stuff like that? Like, do you want to tease any, show any, talk about any? I'm very all about like chasing things down.
Same.
I don't know. Did we bring any tooltips to show?
Graphics.
If you guys want to talk
we
to
can just
uniques
talk
for a
about it,
second,
too.
maybe I'll message our team and see if we might be able to get like a tooltip or two.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of season 2, we've got 25, I think, new uniques, and 8 of these are Weaver's Will specific uniques. There are some really powerful ones, things that drop from Aberroth, and they're not random drops in the world. And there are a couple of specific uniques with some cool new effects, things that we haven't done before. Things like redirecting a percentage of damage taken to your minions, things like that. And there are, of course, there's different ways to craft uniques through woven echoes as well.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay. Well, while we look see if we have any tooltips for any teasers, I think I saw 3 new crafting materials. I jotted them down here real quickly. Maybe we can just kind of rapid fire through all 3 of them and see how they're going to help us. So, Rune of Weaving transforms a small amount of the remaining Weaver's Will on a unique item to legendary affixes. Is this just a way to like accelerate what the Weaver's Will is giving us, so you don't have to put on a crappy item and play for an hour? Is that what that does?
Yes, and that's the main purpose, because obviously with the Weaver expansion, we want to have more Weaver's Will uniques. We want to drop them more frequently from the enemies in tombs and possessed enemies. So we didn't want players to feel like they had to keep equipping all of these items and all their item slots are taken up by these, where they're just working out whether the item's going to be good for them. So a lot of the time, the purpose of the rune is to use it on a fresh Weaver's Will item. And then you can see what affixes it's getting first and decide whether you want to actually equip that and use it up to its full potential. And it's not just Weaver's Will uniques, you can also use it on idols that have been enchanted with Weaver's Touch and see where those go.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's definitely how I was feeling with the old Weaver's Will items. So I get a Weaver's Will pair of boots. I know almost always they're going to upgrade into crap that I'm not going to use. And in order to find out, I got to put the boots on and play with them for an hour. And I'm like, this is terrible. I'm just never going to touch Weaver's items again. But now this rune is going to accelerate that so we can actually see what it gets. Okay, we have the Rune of Havoc. It shuffles the tiers of non-sealed affixes on an exalted item with 4 non-sealed affixes the tiers are preserved. They can't be exactly the same. They cannot be used on items with all the same tiers. So if it shuffles the tiers on an exalted item, does that mean, oh, I have movement speed over here, but I have exalted fire resistance or something, and I don't want exalted fire resist. I want exalted movement speed. So you can shuffle it and try to move the exalt to the godly stat. Is that what's happening here?
Yes. Yeah. So the item, like if it has 2 T7s and 2 T5s, it'll have 2 T7s and 2 T5s afterwards. But which affixes those tiers are on will be shuffled around. So yeah, that's the exact purpose. Mostly you've got something like boots that have T7 in one affix, but you want that T7 to be on movement speed, and you shuffle it to get it there. And these are quite powerful. Like this has a big effect on crafting exalted items and also crafting up all exalted items before you combine them with a unique with LP and make it legendary. So these are relatively rare. They're about as rare as a Rune of Ascendance.
Oh, okay. It's not too bad.
I think it's amazing how these runes are like, yeah, specifically targeting like a lot of pain points that we had. Oh, I find exalts and they're garbage. I'll never use this. Or I find Weaver's Will. I'm not going to put it on to level it up. But now I'll actually interact with these things. It's great. Last one, Rune of Redemption, and then I think we got some goodies in the chat here. Rune of Redemption randomly changes the exalted affixes on an item into different affixes, so it doesn't change the tiers of the affixes. So if you get like a double exalt or something, or a triple exalt, and just hit all the garbage exalts, bam, Rune of Redemption. You try to hit the miracle stats, right?
Exactly it. So often you get these item drops that feel hype because they got lots of exalted affixes, but it's like one's health regen, one's fire res, and well that can be what you're looking for with some builds. Often it's not, and being able to have the chance to reroll that is it's good. It's not quite as powerful as Rune of Havoc in terms of getting exactly what exalted affixes you want, but it can have a higher upside because with Rune of Havoc, you've got to craft on the affix you want, sometimes use a Rune of Removal and risk losing the exalted affix in the first place to make room for the affix you want, whereas with this, you can just roll into it with one rune.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. And the other cool thing about Rune of Havoc is that's the one method that you can get exalted affixes that you can't normally get, things like experimental affixes or the new set affixes as well.
Yeah, it's the only way to get exalted set affixes.
So, I have all the images you sent ready to pop up as well, so I can show them on stream. And we'll start with this one, Scissor of Atropos, 5 Weaver's Will. That looks really cool. Gain a stack of Kismet when you direct use a melee attack. What's Kismet? Is that a class skill thing or?
Sounds like Kiss Me.
It's a buff that's unique to this item. So the effects you see here are the full effects of Kismet.
Ah, when used as throwing attack, consume stacks to gain 8 throwing critical strike. Very cool. Per stack. Is there a max amount of stacks?
Yes, it is 8. It'll say that in the old text.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. I will pop open another one. Then we have Clotho's Needle. Block chance is converted to parry chance. 25 melee crit. Multi per meter from the target up to 5 meters. 20 increased range with Fireman and Puncture. 90 melee damage. And so is this the same Max Weaver's Will as on normal items? Like it's not always 5? Or?
Yes, but Weaver's Will items still have an effective level for Weaver's Will, the same way that regular items have an effective level for legendary potential, and that affects how likely they are to roll with high Weaver's Will or high legendary potential. And so it can roll with 28 Weaver's Will, but that's even less likely than a regular existing Weaver's unique.
Very cool.
Can I ask a question here on these uniques with the Weaver's Will? So when we play with this and we move through the Weaver's Will, does it add additional power to the existing affixes, or does it add another affix that it pumps up, or can it add multiple affixes?
It adds one or more new affixes, the same way that Weaver's Will does on existing items.
Okay. So it's not buffing up the existing affixes. It's going to be something separate as you play with it on these.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then next up, we have Immortal Vice. 30% of hit damage taken from bosses and rare enemies is dealt over 4 seconds instead. While you have more than 10% of your max health is delayed damage. Damage to health below your endurance threshold is reduced by 30%. Elite, melee attack speed, 90 health, and lots of strength.
This is one of the Uber Abbey uniques right here. And actually, Ziz, are you showing the one that has the roll ranges attached to it?
Let's see.
I got the team is feeding them to me right now.
It's the one without ranges.
I see. Yeah, both.
Cool. Yeah, so Immortal Vice and Shattered Worlds are the two Uber Abbey uniques, and we have both of those with roll ranges on there.
Ah. And so these are with legendary potential, not with Weaver's Will.
There is legendary potential. The Weaver themed uniques that you get inside tombs and from the tomb bosses, those tend to be Weaver's Will, whereas the new uniques from Woven Echoes, with the other new bosses, new Aberroth, are just regular legendary potential uniques.
Cool.
Can I ask something again about the Weaver's Will? So when you get one of these like Uber uniques with 5 Weaver's Will, and it's going to add a new affix, are all Weaver's Will items pulling from the same Weaver's Will affix pool? Or if we get like a Weaver's Will item from Uber Aberroth, can it put like a special Weaver's Will affix that we can't see on other regular items?
So Weaver's Will always pulls from the regular affix pool for that item type. So if you've got a unique two-handed sword with Weaver's Will, it will apply regular two-handed sword affixes to it.
Okay, so with our current knowledge of the game, we should be able to like plan out what would be like the ultimate item. Like, oh, you have this sword and you want to hit, I don't know, melee damage again or something, and that would be like the ultimate Giga Chad weapon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can plan all of it out with the new Weaver's Will uniques.
Awesome. I'm also showing Shattered Worlds. You are immune to slow. You have haste, 5% crit, 10 all attributes, 100% effective frenzy, and +1 all skills. And I actually really appreciate that you're showing the roll that I'm going to be dropping from my first kill. So that was considerate. It's missing the legendary potential that it's going to have, but other than that,
This guy.
that looks nice. That looks broken, actually. That's very cool. I think we have one more that I didn't show. I don't think I showed this. I didn't show this, did I?
I like how that one's all about going fast. Can't be slowed. You have haste.
Yeah.
Double the frenzy. You're
Yes,
just a
yes,
crack. You're just a crackhead.
Must go fast. Yeah, I don't think I showed this. +2 max Kelly mages. Nice. Wow. That's like plus a lot of stuff. Very cool. This is going to be very exciting with Weaver's Will.
Yeah.
One's
Awesome.
one of the unique drops from one of the tomb bosses.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you for showing those and teasing those. That's very cool.
For sure. I also got some of the new rune tooltips in here. If we can spread those out later, the actually high res ones, because I think they. Did we show these in the trailer? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in the
Okay.
trailer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick before we go to the next topic, question on those runes. When you use them, do they have the opportunity, or do they consume forging potential on use? Do you need to have forging potential to use them?
So fairly standard 20 forging potential for both. That's still potentially subject to change based on balance testing, but we think it's going to stick as 20.
Okay. Awesome.
So we have a rework, the Sentinel rework. Can you give us more insights into that? Are these buffs or nerfs or new functionalities? I remember last season, I had a thing on my stream called Forge Guard Friday, and believe me, I haven't hated Fridays ever more in my life than when I was forced to do Forge Guard Friday. I really hope we're getting some good news over there.
That's awesome. Apologies that Friday was hard on you, but it shouldn't be that way going forward quite as much. Yeah, we expect that there's going to be a lot of new competitive builds for Sentinels in Season 2. Generally, they will be more powerful than they were previously. We have a big rework coming in for Volatile Reversal, which of course was a very powerful skill, so we've been able to redistribute some of that power across the rest of the Sentinel class, which is giving it a lot more options here. For example, we've done things like we've given a big boost for Electrify builds. We've reworked Time Rot. It's quite powerful. It's much more well supported throughout all the trees. We have some really cool additions to the passives, like the ability to wield a two-handed weapon alongside a shield at the same time. So Forge Guard should be a little bit more fun with that.
You're
And
getting in there.
yeah, absolutely. And we've got a lot of improvements, a lot of updates to the passive trees in general, especially for the Paladin and the Void Knight, as those haven't been touched in quite a long time. So yeah, I think people are gonna have a really good time with the Sentinel reworks that are coming out this season, and we'll be unveiling more just little pockets of passes and stuff like that as we get closer to launch.
Awesome.
yeah.
It's just so much stuff that like I'm looking forward to, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to is Mastery Respec. What's the cost of that? And also like thank you so much for allowing the Respec of Mastery. For those that don't know, that's the Last Epoch's version of Ascendancies, and you can respec those now.
Yeah, we were stubborn about changing this for quite a long time. Or we're the diehard ARPG fan base that's like, once you get a class, you're absolutely that character, and you can't change. You have to reroll a character. We finally gave way. It is a good user experience boost for people that don't want to be spending significant amount of time rerolling characters. So I think it is going to be very healthy for the game. In terms for the cost associated with this, it's fairly reasonable. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Ross or Holly, if you guys have any exact numbers here, we can share. But reasonable once you get to late 80s, 90s, and stuff like that, ramps pretty significantly. But if you're a user experimenting with different masteries, you're not going to have a hard time swapping to something else if you decide that you've gone the wrong route.
Yeah, the last respec I did, I was level 85, and I think it was 500,000 gold. Early on, it is very cheap though. You should have enough gold initially. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it goes up quite a bit after level 80. But it scales with the level. It's just gold.
That's our stubbornness coming through, just at later levels.
I don't mind that it costs a lot. I just want to be able to do it.
Got to put your foot down
Absolutely.
at some point,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, I saw that you guys are giving us some new inventory tabs. That's amazing. And I thought I heard you say at the very beginning, you said something about crafting things going like not being in our inventory. Is there something there?
Yeah, we've actually made a big update where when you pick up crafting materials, now they will now automatically go to your crafting inventory, getting them out of your inventory panel and not having to transfer them before they go away. I will say that this is a massive quality of life feel. It's probably one of my it's such a simple change, but it's probably one of my very favorite things coming out with season 2. That paired with the different stash tabs, you're just not having to do inventory management nearly as frequently as you had to previously, and it feels very good, especially if you're playing on gamepad like I play, because my wrists are all screwed up from playing these for thousands and thousands of hours. It's massive.
Same.
Yes.
Wow.
So I remember that was one of the first Reddit posts I ever put on Last Epoch when I started playing. I was like, "Can we please?" Just to clarify, we're talking about the little vacuum button that we press all the time. It just auto goes in.
It says transfer, and then it goes into the crafting. That now is completely bypassed. It is an option, so for those of you that really like pressing the transfer button, I know there's a lot of you. You can still do it,
Dozens.
but for everybody else, they can
That's nice.
go to the settings and check on, and it'll just go immediately to the crafting inventory.
Yeah, you can
Cool.
also you can opt out of certain things for that. So if you want rare crafting materials to always read them and make sure that you're understanding they're going in, you can exclude them from automatically being stashed, which is helpful.
Ah.
Awesome.
Or keys or Raven Echoes, but you can stash all of them if you want, and it'll show the little tooltips up on the top left of the screen that it does when you manually click the store button. So you do get that extra notification of what you're picking up.
Cool.
It's beautiful.
Another thing that's being added is portal charms, which bypasses the dungeon, goes directly to the boss for like Jolera and stuff like that. Is this a
Yes.
one-time use or something I unlock and then I can just skip the dungeon?
They are consumable items. Yep, and we're adding a couple different portal charms. We know the one that people are going to be the most excited about is the one that allows you to just skip directly to the boss on use. Rarity-wise, they're about as rare as a Rune of Ascendance, but we also have a key vendor inside of Majelka where you can trade 3 of the different dungeon keys and then get a portal charm from that. So yeah, for people that are looking to skip the dungeon and are doing things like farming keys and stuff like that, you should have them fairly readily available. Yeah.
And do you need the key and the charm, or do you only need the charm?
Okay.
You need the
Yeah,
you need
charm.
both.
Awesome. So I know tons of people are going to be super excited about the WASD beta support. A
Yeah.
lot of people play that way. It's a massive thing. So I'm going to follow it up with a very, very pivotal question. So you guys got to be very careful with this answer here. Is there any news about Last Epoch coming to consoles? There's a lot of players out there that are dying for you to release it over there.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll start with WASD. So WASD is something, recently people have gone and played in WASD, and there's a lot of people that says, I'll never be able to play an action RPG without WASD. And so we did want to go and experiment with this and see how quickly we might be able to get a prototype of this across the line. We were actually able to prototype it fairly quickly and verify that it feels good. And then we had to take a little bit more time to do all of the user-facing, input schemas and stuff like that. It actually took a little bit longer than actually implementing that base functionality of WASD. For consoles, nothing to announce currently, but what I will say is that there is an absolute ton of work going into the gamepad experience for PC. Lots and lots and lots of updates coming to UI, gamepad targeting, things of that nature. Lots coming with Season 2, but that's just the beginning. We have ramped up that pipeline significantly. So gamepad experience is going to be really solid in LE.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Aberroth as well is getting a lot of changes. Is the base version a lot nerfed, and like is the goal here to just make like the first version more accessible to people? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's base Aberroth is being nerfed a little bit. On top of that, the power ceiling is rising just slightly with the addition of idle enchantments and a number of buffs to existing classes and skills. So base Aberroth, we want that to be something that an engaged player can pursue and get to. Now, Uber Aberroth is going to definitely be a chase kill for anybody that's really hardcore into the game.
Oh, actually, is there any like race or anything for the Uber Aberroth?
If Scissored wants to make one.
Oh. Okay. We can maybe do that.
All right.
Why not?
All right. Let's talk.
Yeah, let's see if we can do that.
It'd be fun.
All right. Well, kind of kept this one short and sweet because there's going to be a whole month of these podcasts going on. We're doing one a week, right? And the next one, I believe, is going to be with Gazzy. So I assume all of those uniques that we saw in there about the minion stuff, I'm sure he's going to dissect them in tremendous detail. I think I speak on behalf of the community where we're just glad to see EHG and Last Epoch are back. I consider this a wonderful update. It's clear that you guys, as you said, we're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Coming out April 2nd. And
That's correct.
Follow Zizrin everywhere. We're here on Zizrin's channel. He's on all social media. And I don't know. I had an amazing time here, guys. Do you have anything else, Zizrin, you wanted to throw out there before we
I do, yeah.
close
Make sure you
off the call?
follow Rax everywhere as well. He's also amazing. Together, we're completely smurfed.
The Blue Man group, here we
The
are.
Blue Man Group.
Love
All
it, guys.
right.
Absolute pleasure. Appreciate you guys having us on. Always a good time talking.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this, and hopefully we'll do more talks in the future.
All right, guys. See you in game April 2nd.
Cheers.
Bye.